The moment I signed the biggest deal of my career in Geneva, my phone buzzed with a text that shattered everything. $10 million, secured handshakes, completed champagne poured. Then I read Mom's message. Sold your Mustang to help Madison's bakery. She needed startup cash more than you need toys. My hands trembled. That 1967 Shelby wasn't just a car, it was Dad's final gift before cancer took him my last connection to our Sunday drives together. The crystal chandelier above the Geneva boardroom suddenly felt like it was spinning. My business partner Jake noticed my face drain of color as I stared at the phone screen reading Mom's text message over and over. The Swiss executives were still congratulating us on finalizing the acquisition deal, but their voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. "Estelle, you look like you've seen a ghost," Jake whispered, placing a concerned hand on my shoulder. I excused myself and rushed to my hotel room at the Four Seasons, my designer heels clicking frantically against the marble floors. Once alone, I immediately called home to Denver, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Mom, what do you mean you sold Dad's Mustang?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked with emotion. Oh, honey, Madison really needed the money for her bakery startup. You're never home anyway, always traveling for work. We thought you wouldn't mind. Carol's voice carried that familiar tone of justification mixed with guilt. I sank onto the hotel bed, staring out at Lake Geneva while my world crumbled. That pristine 1967 Shelby Cobra wasn't just a vintage car it represented. Every Saturday morning, Dad and I spent in the garage teaching me about engines, about persistence, about following your dreams. When he passed 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer, he specifically left it to me in his will with a handwritten note saying it would remind me that home was always waiting, no matter how far my career took me. Mom, that car meant everything to me. Dad specifically wanted me to have it. Madison said you told her last Christmas that you didn't care about material things anymore, that your career was your only priority now. Mom's defensive tone grew stronger. She said you wouldn't mind if we helped her achieve her dreams the same way you've achieved yours. My blood ran cold. I had never said anything remotely close to that. Madison had been feeding our parents lies about me for months, poisoning them against me while I was building my consulting firm across 3 continents. Put Madison on the phone, now. When my sister's voice came through the speaker, it was dripping with fake sweetness. "Estelle, congratulations on your big deal. I saw your LinkedIn post about the acquisition." "Madison, why did you tell Mom I said those things about not caring about the family?" "I never said that. I just mentioned how you're always so busy with work, and Mom interpreted it that way. You know how she worries about you becoming too focused on money." Madison's voice cracked slightly, the way it always did when she was lying. Through the video call, I could see Madison in our parents' kitchen, her eyes red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. She was wearing Dad's old Denver Broncos sweatshirt, the one he used to wear during our Sunday football games. The sight of it made my chest tighten with rage and grief. "How much did you sell it for?" $35,000. The buyer was so excited to get such a pristine model, I made sure it went to someone who would appreciate it. Madison's performance was Academy Award-worthy, complete with trembling lip and downcast eyes. "That car was worth at least $60,000, Madison. Dad had it professionally appraised 2 years before he died." "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not as good with money as you are, Estelle. I was just trying to save my business before I lose everything I've worked for." The hotel concierge Maria knocked softly and entered with evening turn-down service. She took one look at my tear-stained face and quietly approached with a box of tissues, her maternal instincts kicking in despite the language barrier. Her kindness in that moment of betrayal made me break down completely. After hanging up, I sat in the elegant hotel room overlooking the Swiss Alps, finally understanding the depth of Madison's manipulation. She had deliberately timed this betrayal for when I would be unreachable during the most important business negotiations of my career. She knew I couldn't drop everything and fly home immediately. She had calculated every aspect of this theft, knowing our parents would side with the daughter who was physically present, crying and playing the victim. Jake called to check on me, and I found myself explaining the situation to someone who had witnessed my father's funeral, who knew what that car represented in my life. Estelle, this isn't just about a car. This is about your sister systematically undermining your relationship with your parents. You need to get home and fix this before it gets worse. As I booked an emergency flight back to Denver, I realized Madison's plan was far more sophisticated than I had initially understood. She hadn't just stolen my car, she had stolen my place in the family. The 9-hour flight from Geneva to Denver felt like the longest journey of my life. I spent every minute strategizing, reviewing family photos on my phone, and trying to understand when Madison's resentment had transformed into calculated manipulation. By the time I landed at Denver International Airport, I had a plan. I drove my rental car straight to our childhood home in the Highlands Ranch suburb, where Mom and my stepfather, Frank, had lived for the past 15 years. The familiar sight of the 2-story colonial with its perfectly manicured lawn should have brought comfort, but instead it felt like approaching enemy territory. Madison's Honda Civic was parked in the driveway where my Mustang should have been. The sight of that empty space hit me like a physical blow. Mom answered the door wearing her favorite lavender cardigan, the same one she wore during difficult conversations. Her expression was guarded, prepared for conflict. "Estelle, sweetheart, I didn't expect you back so soon." "We need to talk, all of us, right now." Frank emerged from his home office still wearing his reading glasses and looking uncomfortable. Madison appeared at the top of the staircase, descending slowly like she was making a grand entrance. She had lost weight since Christmas, and her auburn hair was styled differently, shorter, more sophisticated. She was clearly working hard to present herself as the responsible, struggling entrepreneur. We gathered in the living room where family meetings had always taken place, the same burgundy couch, the same family photos on the mantel, but the atmosphere was poisonous with unspoken accusations and lies. "Madison, I want to see the paperwork from the car sale," I said without preamble. Estelle, don't you think you're being a little harsh?" Mom interjected. "Madison has been going through such a difficult time with her business." "What business, Mom? What exactly is Madison's bakery plan?" Madison pulled out a folder with surprising preparedness, containing what appeared to be business plans, market research, and financial projections for Sweet Madison's artisanal bakery. The documents looked professional, complete with charts and graphs. "I've been working on this for 8 months." Madison explained, her voice gaining confidence. "It's going to be a gluten-free, organic bakery focusing on custom wedding cakes and corporate catering. The market research shows huge demand in the Denver metro area." As I flipped through the documents, Frank nodded approvingly. "She's really done her homework, Estelle. This isn't some fly-by-night operation." But something felt wrong. The documents were too perfect, too polished for someone who had never successfully run a business before. Madison had failed at selling essential oils, had quit her job at the marketing firm after 3 months, and had never shown any interest in baking beyond making box brownies. "Where exactly is this bakery going to be located?" "I'm still negotiating lease terms with several properties in the Cherry Creek area," Madison replied smoothly. I opened my laptop and began searching business registration databases while they watched nervously. After 20 minutes of research, I found what I was looking for, or rather, what I wasn't looking for. "Madison, there's no business license application filed under your name or under Sweet Madison's artisanal bakery anywhere in Colorado." The color drained from Madison's face, but she recovered quickly. "I haven't filed yet because I needed the startup capital first. You can't get approved for commercial space without proving you have funding." "That's not how business licenses work, and you know it." Mom stood up abruptly, clearly agitated. "Estelle, why are you attacking your sister like this? She's trying to build something meaningful with her life just like you did." Because none of this adds up, Mom, and because I've discovered some very disturbing things about how Madison has been representing me to you. I pulled out my phone and showed them screenshots of text messages between Madison and me from the past year, messages where Madison had asked for my advice on various topics, where I had sent birthday gifts, where I had expressed love and concern for the whole family. None of the cold, career-obsessed daughter Madison had described to them existed in these communications. Frank adjusted his glasses and studied the messages carefully. He had always been the more analytical one in the family, the one who asked probing questions before making decisions. Madison, these messages show Estelle being very supportive and engaged with family matters. Why did you tell us she had become distant and uncaring? Before Madison could answer, Mrs. Patterson from next door knocked on the front door. Mom invited her in, as was customary in our neighborhood where everyone looked out for each other. Carol, I hope you don't mind me stopping by, but I wanted to ask about the loud parties Madison has been having while you and Frank were visiting your sister in Phoenix last month. The music was quite disruptive and there were cars parked all along the street until 3 in the morning. The room fell silent. Mom and Frank had indeed visited Frank's sister in Arizona for 2 weeks in March, and Madison was supposed to have been house-sitting responsibly. Parties. Mom's voice was barely above a whisper. Mrs. Patterson, realizing she had stepped into family drama, began backing toward the door. Oh dear, I'm sorry. I assumed you knew. Madison had quite a few gatherings while you were away. I thought perhaps they were business meetings for her bakery venture. After Mrs. Patterson left, the tension in the room was suffocating. Madison's carefully constructed image was beginning to crack, but she wasn't finished fighting. Those weren't parties, they were networking events for my business. I was meeting with potential investors and suppliers. Mrs. Patterson is an old busybody who doesn't understand how modern business works. At 3 in the morning, Frank's question was sharp and direct. Madison's composure finally snapped. You know what, I am tired of being interrogated like a criminal. Estelle abandoned us after Dad died, throwing herself into her career and leaving me to take care of our grieving mother. She doesn't deserve Dad's car because she doesn't deserve this family. She chose money over us, so I chose us over her precious car. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Mom gasped, Frank looked stunned, and I felt something inside me break and reform into something harder. Madison, where is Dad's letter? The one he wrote explaining why he wanted me to have the Mustang. Madison's face went completely white. What letter? The handwritten letter that was in the glove compartment. Dad's final message to me about the car and what it represented. I don't know what you're talking about. But her eyes told a different story. She had found that letter, read it, and understood exactly how much she was destroying when she sold the car. The betrayal wasn't accidental, it was surgical, designed to cause maximum emotional damage. Frank stood up, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled anger. Madison, this family meeting is far from over. We're going to get to the bottom of every lie you've told, and you're going to fix what you've broken. All of it. The next morning, I called Rebecca Chen, a private investigator I had worked with during corporate due diligence projects. If Madison was lying about some things, I needed to know the full scope of her deception before confronting my parents with incomplete information. Estelle, I can have preliminary findings for you within 48 hours, Rebecca assured me over the phone. Financial records, business filing, social media analysis, the works. While waiting for Rebecca's report, I decided to visit Pastor Williams at our family church. Dad had been a deacon there for 20 years, and Pastor Williams had known our family through both triumphs and tragedies. If anyone could provide perspective on Madison's recent behavior, it would be him. Covenant Baptist Church sat on a tree-lined street in Littleton, its red brick exterior and white steeple representing stability in an increasingly chaotic world. Pastor Williams greeted me in his office, which smelled of coffee and old books just as it had throughout my childhood. Estelle, it's wonderful to see you. Your mother mentioned you were in town for a family visit. Pastor Williams, I need to ask you about Madison. Has she been attending services regularly? His expression grew thoughtful and slightly concerned. Madison has been coming to church, yes, but her behavior has been troubling. She's been telling congregation members that you've rejected the family's Christian values in favor of corporate success. She claimed you sent her a harsh email saying you were too important now to waste time on small-town church people. My stomach dropped. I had never sent any such email, and the phrase small-town church people was completely contrary to how I viewed our community. Pastor Williams, I've never written or said anything like that. May I show you my actual email communications with Madison? As he reviewed the messages on my phone, his frown deepened. Estelle, these communications show a completely different person than the one Madison described. She painted you as someone who had become arrogant and dismissive of your roots. What else has she told people about me? She mentioned that you laughed when she asked for help with her business, that you said her dreams were pathetic compared to real success. She was quite emotional when sharing this, and it generated a lot of sympathy from the congregation. I felt sick. Madison had weaponized our church community against me, creating a narrative where I was the cold, successful daughter who had abandoned her struggling sister and grieving mother. My phone rang, Rebecca calling with her preliminary findings. Estelle, we need to meet in person immediately. What I've discovered goes far beyond family drama. An hour later, I sat in Rebecca's downtown Denver office, reviewing documents that painted a devastating picture of Madison's activities over the past 2 years. Your sister has never filed a business license application for any bakery, Rebecca began, but she has been active in underground poker games throughout the Denver metro area. These aren't friendly neighborhood games, we're talking high-stakes operations with serious financial consequences. She slid a stack of bank records across the desk. Madison has withdrawn approximately $12,000 from your parents' savings account over the past 6 months using forged authorization documents. Forged documents? She created fake emergency medical bills showing that you had instructed her to access their account for your supposed surgery expenses while you were traveling. Your parents believed they were helping you during a medical crisis. The level of Madison's deception was staggering. She hadn't just stolen my car, she had been systematically draining our parents' retirement fund while positioning herself as my representative. There's more. Madison has been intercepting mail addressed to you at your parents' house. Credit card offers bank statements, even personal letters from family friends. She's been building a comprehensive picture of your financial situation. Rebecca showed me photographs of Madison entering and leaving various locations throughout Denver, not bakery supply stores or commercial real estate offices, but underground poker venues in industrial warehouses and private homes. The $35,000 from your car sale went directly into these gambling operations. She's lost it all, Estelle, every penny. What does she owe? Current debts appear to total around $60,000 to various operators. These aren't people who negotiate payment plans. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Strange men came to the house asking about Madison. They seemed very upset about money. Frank called the police, but they left before officers arrived. I called Mom immediately. What did these men look like? What exactly did they say? They said Madison owed them money and that our house could be used as collateral if she didn't pay. Estelle, I'm scared. What has Madison gotten involved in? The pieces were falling into place with terrifying clarity. Madison hadn't just stolen from me, she had put our entire family in danger. I raced back to the family home, finding Mom and Frank huddled in the kitchen, clearly shaken by their unwelcome visitors. Madison was nowhere to be found. Oh, where is she? She left this morning with a suitcase saying she had business meetings in Colorado Springs, Frank replied. But after those men came by, we're not sure she was telling the truth about that either. I showed them Rebecca's evidence, The gambling venues, the forged documents, the systematic theft from their savings account. Mom collapsed into a kitchen chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Madison's betrayal. She used our money to gamble. She forged our signatures. Mom, it gets worse. She's been telling people throughout our community that I've become a cold, uncaring person who rejected the family. She's been intercepting my mail and building a case against me while stealing from all of us. Frank examined the bank records with his accountant's eye for detail. These withdrawals correspond exactly with times when Madison told us you were having medical emergencies abroad. She said you were too proud to ask for help directly. The cruelest aspect of Madison's scheme was how she had used our parents' love for both daughters against them. She had positioned herself as the caring intermediary, helping her successful but troubled sister, while sacrificing her own needs for the family good. We have to find her before this gets worse, I said. Those men who came to the house aren't going to wait for Madison to develop a payment plan. That evening, Tyler Morrison called. Madison's ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, Tyler had remained friendly with the family despite their breakup. Estelle, I heard Madison was in some kind of trouble. I wanted you to know that this isn't the first time she's done something like this. Oh, well, what do you mean? When we were dating, she convinced my parents to loan her $5,000 for a supposed jewelry business. She used the same tactics, playing the struggling entrepreneur, making me look like the unsupportive boyfriend. She never paid them back, and she never started any jewelry business. Tyler's revelation added another dimension to Madison's pattern of deception. This wasn't recent behavior triggered by grief or financial pressure. It was a sophisticated manipulation system she had been perfecting for years. Tyler, do you have any idea where she might go if she was trying to disappear? She always talked about Las Vegas when she was dreaming about getting rich quick. She said if she could just get enough money together for one big score, she could solve all her problems. As I hung up with Tyler, police cars pulled into our driveway. Officers James Rodriguez and Sarah Mitchell approached the house with serious expressions. Mrs. Henderson, we have a warrant for Madison Henderson's arrest on charges of forgery and financial fraud. Is she currently residing at this address? Mom broke down completely as the reality hit her. Madison wasn't just in trouble, she was a fugitive, and the family home was now part of an active criminal investigation. She left this morning, Frank informed the officers. We don't know where she went, but we suspect she may have fled to Nevada. Officer Rodriguez handed me his card. Ms. Henderson, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to provide a full statement about the forged documents and unauthorized account access. This is now a multi-jurisdictional case. That night, as I sat in my childhood bedroom surrounded by evidence of Madison's crimes, I realized that saving my family would require more than just recovering my car. Madison had woven such a complex web of lies that unraveling it would take strategic precision and unwavering determination. I called Rebecca one more time. Find her. Whatever it takes, find Madison before she destroys what's left of this family. Rebecca's call came at 6 a.m, jolting me from restless sleep in my childhood bedroom. Found her. Madison checked into the Bellagio in Las Vegas under her own name 3 hours ago. She's not even trying to hide. How did you track her so quickly? Credit card transactions. She's been using your parents' emergency credit card, the one they gave her for family emergencies. She's charged nearly $4,000 in the past 18 hours, including the hotel room spa services and restaurant meals. I felt my anger crystallizing into cold determination. Madison wasn't just gambling away stolen money, she was living lavishly while our parents suffered the consequences of her actions. Rebecca, I need you to coordinate with Las Vegas authorities. I want her arrested before she can disappear into the casino underground. Within 2 hours, I was on a flight to Las Vegas, armed with Rebecca's evidence and a determination to end Madison's reign of manipulation once and for all. Meanwhile, the situation at home was deteriorating rapidly. Frank called as my plane took off from Denver. Estelle, those men came back. This time they weren't asking politely. They showed us documents indicating that Madison used our mortgage information to secure additional loans. If she doesn't pay, they claim they can seize the house. Frank, call attorney Sarah Martinez immediately. I'm sending you her number. Don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and don't let anyone into the house without a court order. The flight to Vegas gave me time to process the full scope of Madison's operation. She hadn't just stolen from our family, she had been running a sophisticated con game that exploited the love and trust of everyone who cared about her. Rebecca met me at McCarran International Airport with additional disturbing discoveries. Estelle Madison's scheme is even more extensive than we initially thought. I've identified at least 3 other families in Colorado who were victimized by similar manipulation tactics. She handed me a folder containing testimonies from the Thompson family in Phoenix, whose daughter Madison had befriended during a vacation last year. Madison had convinced them to loan her $8,000 for a supposed medical emergency, claiming her family was too proud to help during their financial difficulties. The Chen family in Seattle reported a similar experience. Madison gained their trust through social media, eventually convincing them to sell valuable jewelry to help fund her educational pursuits. She told them she was studying business management and needed tuition money. The pattern was identical in each case. Madison identified vulnerable families, established emotional connections, created elaborate sob stories, and positioned herself as someone whose own family had failed to support her dreams. She's been perfecting this system for over 2 years, Rebecca explained. You weren't her first target. You were just her biggest score because she had intimate knowledge of your emotional vulnerabilities. We arrived at the Bellagio to find Madison exactly where Rebecca had predicted, sitting at a high-stakes poker table in the casino's VIP section, wearing designer clothes, purchased with stolen money, and playing with chips representing thousands of dollars she didn't own. I watched her from across the casino floor, studying the woman who had systematically destroyed our family's trust. Madison looked confident, almost euphoric, completely absorbed in the gambling that had consumed her life and driven her to such devastating betrayals. Casino security, coordinating with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police, positioned themselves strategically around the poker area. Detective Maria Santos approached me to finalize the arrest plan. Ms. Henderson, we've reviewed all the evidence your investigator provided. Your sister will be charged with multiple felonies across 3 states. Are you prepared to testify about the forgery and theft? Absolutely. I want her to face full consequences for what she's done to our family and others. When Madison finally looked up from her poker game, our eyes met across the crowded casino floor. Her expression shifted from confident to shocked to desperate in a matter of seconds. She knew her elaborate game was over. Security moved in as Madison attempted to gather her chips and flee. She was detained at the poker table while other players and casino staff watched in confusion. Estelle, you don't understand, Madison called out as officers approached. I can win it back. I was about to turn everything around. One more big hand and I could have repaid everyone. The desperation in her voice was heartbreaking, but it couldn't erase the calculated cruelty of her actions over the past 2 years. During the confrontation in the casino security office, Madison's mask finally slipped completely. You've always had everything handed to you, she spat, handcuffs cutting into her wrists. Dad loved you more. You got the better education, you got the successful career. All I wanted was one chance to prove I could be successful too. Madison's success doesn't come from stealing from people who love you. It comes from hard work, honesty, and treating people with respect. Don't lecture me about respect. You abandoned this family the moment Dad died. You threw yourself into work and left me to deal with Mom's grief and depression. I deserve compensation for all the emotional labor I provided while you were building your precious career. Detective Santos intervened before the conversation could escalate further. Ms. Madison Henderson, you're being charged with felony fraud, forgery, and interstate theft. You have the right to remain silent. As Madison was led away in handcuffs, she made one final attempt at manipulation. Estelle, if you love this family, you'll help me fix this. I'll pay everyone back. I'll get treatment for the gambling addiction, but I need you to not press charges. Please don't destroy my life over money. The pleading in her voice might have worked 2 weeks ago before I understood the full scope of her manipulation, but now I could see it for what it was, another performance designed to avoid consequences while shifting responsibility to others. Madison, the only way to fix this is for you to face the full consequences of your choices and learn to rebuild your life based on honesty instead of manipulation. Casino security provided surveillance footage showing Madison's gambling activities over the past 24 hours. She had lost an additional $15,000 of our parents' money since arriving in Las Vegas, money that represented their security and retirement dreams. That evening, I called home to update Mom and Frank on Madison's arrest. Estelle, I feel like I've failed as a mother, Mom cried. How did I not see what Madison was doing to our family? Mom, Madison is a skilled manipulator who exploited your love and trust. This isn't your failure, it's hers. But now we have a chance to rebuild our family based on truth instead of lies. The flight back to Denver gave me time to plan the next phase. Madison's arrest was just the beginning. The real work would involve helping our parents heal from the betrayal, recovering our financial losses, and ensuring Madison faced consequences that would genuinely transform her destructive behavior. Rebecca's final report painted a clear picture of Madison's systematic destruction, $63,000 in total theft from family and other victims, forged documents spanning 2 years, and a gambling addiction that had consumed every relationship she claimed to value. But for the first time since receiving Mom's devastating text in Geneva, I felt hope. Madison's web of lies had been exposed, justice was beginning, and our family had a chance to heal based on truth rather than manipulation. The next 48 hours revealed the true extent of Madison's criminal network. While she sat in a Las Vegas jail cell awaiting extradition to Colorado, my investigation uncovered a trail of devastation spanning multiple states and dozens of victims. Rebecca's expanded investigation brought forward the Thompson family from Phoenix, whose story was heartbreakingly similar to ours. Janet Thompson called me personally after learning about Madison's arrest through law enforcement channels. Your sister befriended my daughter Emma on social media last summer, Janet explained through tears. She spent months building trust, sharing stories about her struggling family and her dreams of opening a business. Eventually, she convinced us to help her buy a vintage motorcycle that belonged to Emma's grandfather. The motorcycle had been worth $12,000 sold to fund what Madison claimed was urgent medical treatment for our supposedly hospitalized mother. Janet's family had sacrificed their own precious heirloom based on Madison's fabricated emergency. She had photographs of your mother in a hospital bed, medical documents showing treatment costs. Everything looked authentic. Janet continued, we felt terrible that her own family couldn't help during such a crisis. The photographs were real, taken during Mom's minor outpatient procedure the previous year, but Madison had twisted them into evidence of a fake emergency. Her attention to detail in crafting these deceptions was terrifyingly sophisticated. David Chen from Seattle shared an equally disturbing experience. Madison had contacted his family after his daughter posted about college applications on social media, claiming she was applying to the same universities and needed help with tuition deposits. She convinced us that her college fund had been stolen by identity thieves and that her family was too financially devastated to help her achieve her educational dreams. David explained, we sold my wife's grandmother's jewelry collection to help this poor girl pursue her education. $8,000 in antique jewelry sold to fund Madison's gambling addiction, while our own family believed she was struggling to save a legitimate business. The pattern was always the same. Madison identified families with strong values and emotional connections to specific possessions, then created elaborate scenarios where helping her meant sacrificing something precious while believing it served a noble purpose. Detective Rodriguez in Denver coordinated with law enforcement across multiple jurisdictions to build a comprehensive case. Madison's phone records revealed a network of communications with gambling operations, loan sharks, and other victims spanning the entire western United States. Your sister has been running this operation for over 3 years, Detective Rodriguez informed me. She's facing charges in Colorado, Nevada, Arizona, and Washington. The federal fraud investigators are considering additional charges for interstate wire fraud. While awaiting Madison's extradition, I focused on helping the families she had victimized. Each conversation revealed new layers of her psychological manipulation tactics. Emma Thompson, the college student whose family had sacrificed their grandfather's motorcycle, was particularly devastated by the betrayal. Madison became like a sister to me. Emma sobbed during our video call. She shared her deepest fears and dreams, listened to my problems, supported me through family difficulties. I trusted her completely. Madison had spent months building genuine relationships with these families, investing time and emotional energy in understanding their values, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Her betrayals weren't impulsive crimes. They were calculated psychological operations designed to exploit human compassion. The Chen family's daughter, Lisa, had been corresponding with Madison for over a year about college plans and career aspirations. Madison had positioned herself as a mentor figure, offering advice about business studies and entrepreneurship while secretly planning to exploit their generosity. She knew exactly which emotional buttons to push, Lisa explained. She made helping her feel like we were investing in both our futures, like we were building a lifelong friendship based on mutual support. Dr. Patricia Williams, a forensic psychologist I consulted to understand Madison's behavior patterns, provided disturbing insights into her manipulation methods. Your sister demonstrates characteristics of a sophisticated con artist, someone who can maintain multiple false identities while genuinely connecting with targets on an emotional level, Dr. Williams explained. She likely believes her own justifications for these crimes, viewing herself as a victim even while victimizing others. This psychological profile explained why Madison's performances had been so convincing. She wasn't simply lying, she was creating alternate realities where she genuinely deserved the help she was stealing. 3 days after Madison's arrest, she called me collect from the Clark County Detention Center in Las Vegas. "Estelle, I need you to bail me out. The public defender says I can get released pending trial if someone posts $50,000 bond." "Madison, I'm not posting bail for someone who has been systematically stealing from our family and others for 3 years. You don't understand. The people I owe money to have contacts inside the jail system. If I stay locked up, they'll find ways to hurt me. You have to help me." The fear in her voice was genuine, but I recognized it as another manipulation tactic designed to make me feel responsible for her safety. "Madison, the only way you'll be truly safe is by cooperating fully with law enforcement and accepting responsibility for your actions." "Estelle, please. I'll give you information about the gambling operations. I'll testify against the loan sharks. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Just don't abandon me in here." For a moment, I almost wavered. Despite everything Madison had done, she was still my sister, and the thought of her being harmed in jail was genuinely distressing. But Rebecca's voice echoed in my mind from our strategy session. "Estelle, if you bail her out, she'll disappear. People with Madison's psychological profile don't change unless they face real consequences. If you enable her now, she'll continue victimizing innocent families." Madison, I'll support you through proper legal channels and treatment programs, but I won't help you avoid the consequences of your choices. That's exactly the kind of enabling that allowed this situation to get so destructive. The phone went silent for a long moment before Madison's voice returned cold and vicious. I should have known you'd abandon me, just like you abandoned Mom after Dad died. This is exactly why I deserve Dad's car more than you. At least, I stayed home and took care of the family while you ran away to play corporate executive. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking, but it also provided clarity. Madison genuinely believed she was entitled to steal from people who loved her, because she felt insufficiently appreciated for her sacrifices. Madison taking care of family doesn't mean manipulating and stealing from them. Real care involves honesty, respect, and supporting each other's growth instead of exploiting each other's vulnerabilities. After hanging up, I realized that Madison's arrest was only the beginning of a much longer process. The legal system would handle her crimes, but healing the damage she had caused to multiple families would require sustained effort and commitment. Detective Rodriguez called with an update on the investigation. Estelle, we've identified 2 additional families in Utah and New Mexico who were victimized by Madison's schemes. The total financial damage appears to exceed $100,000. $100,000 stolen from families who had trusted Madison's stories about medical emergencies, educational needs, and business opportunities. Each theft had been carefully planned and executed with emotional precision. That evening, I video called the other victim families to propose a coordinated approach to seeking restitution and supporting each other through the legal process ahead. We can't undo what Madison did to our families, I told the group, but we can make sure she faces appropriate consequences and gets the treatment she needs to change her behavior. And we can support each other as we rebuild the trust she destroyed. Janet Thompson nodded through her tears. My daughter Emma needs to understand that there are still good people in the world, that Madison's betrayal doesn't represent how most people behave. David Chen agreed. Our families were targeted because we have strong values and generous hearts. We shouldn't let Madison's actions change who we are. As we planned our coordinated response to Madison's crimes, I felt something I hadn't experienced since receiving Mom's text in Geneva, genuine hope for healing and justice. Madison had spent 3 years building a web of lies and exploitation, but her victims were now united in demanding accountability and working together to rebuild what she had destroyed. The hunt was over. Madison had been caught, her crimes exposed, and her victims empowered to seek justice. But the real work of healing and transformation was just beginning. 6 months later, I sat in the Colorado Springs courthouse watching Madison shuffle into the courtroom wearing an Orange County jail uniform, her once confident demeanor replaced by exhaustion and defeat. The gambling addiction and months of incarceration had taken their toll, but more importantly, the consequences of her actions were finally catching up with her. District Attorney Michael Rivera had assembled an impressive case spanning multiple jurisdictions. Madison faced 12 felony counts, including fraud, forgery, interstate theft, and racketeering related to her systematic targeting of families across 4 states. Your Honor, DA Rivera addressed Judge Patricia Lawson. The defendant engaged in a 3-year criminal enterprise that specifically targeted families' most precious possessions and deepest emotional connections. She didn't just steal money, she weaponized trust, love, and compassion to fund a gambling addiction that consumed every relationship she claimed to value. Madison's court-appointed attorney James Walsh had convinced her to accept a plea agreement rather than face trial. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and additional charges kept surfacing as more victims came forward. Judge Lawson reviewed the victim impact statements before addressing Madison directly. Ms. Henderson, your crimes have affected not only your immediate family, but multiple families across several states. The court has received testimony about grandparents' heirlooms, college funds, retirement savings, and irreplaceable mementos that were sacrificed to fund your gambling addiction based on lies you told about medical emergencies and business opportunities. When given the opportunity to address the court, Madison stood slowly, her voice barely audible. Your Honor, I know what I did was wrong. I was struggling with addiction and depression after my father's death, and I made terrible choices that hurt people who loved and trusted me. I want to make amends and get the help I need to become the person my family deserves. Judge Lawson wasn't impressed by Madison's prepared statement. Ms. Henderson, your crimes weren't impulsive mistakes made during emotional distress. The evidence shows careful planning, sophisticated manipulation tactics, and deliberate targeting of vulnerable families over multiple years. This represents a pattern of predatory behavior that requires significant intervention. The sentence reflected the serious nature of Madison's crimes: 5 years in state prison with possibility of parole after 18 months, contingent upon complete restitution to all victims and successful completion of intensive gambling addiction treatment and family therapy programs. But I had already formulated a different plan. During the recess, I approached DA Rivera with a proposal that had taken months to develop, with input from victim families, addiction specialists, and financial advisors. Mr. Rivera, I want to offer Madison an alternative path that focuses on accountability and transformation, rather than just punishment. My proposal was comprehensive. Instead of serving her full prison sentence, Madison would be released to a supervised halfway house program where she would work 3 jobs to earn restitution money, attend mandatory gambling addiction counseling 5 days per week, participate in family therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia Williams, and perform community service by speaking to families about manipulation tactics used by con artists. The total restitution amount is $112,000. I explained. At minimum wage across 3 part-time jobs, Madison can earn approximately $1,800 per month after basic living expenses. Full restitution will take approximately 5 years, during which she'll be under constant supervision and required to demonstrate genuine behavioral changes. Judge Lawson was intrigued by the alternative approach. Ms. Henderson, this is an unusual opportunity. Your sister is offering you a chance to avoid most of your prison time in exchange for complete accountability and sustained effort to repair the damage you've caused. Do you accept these terms? Madison's response would determine whether she spent the next 5 years in prison or the next 5 years working to rebuild her life while making amends to her victims. Yes, Your Honor, I accept. The first phase of Madison's accountability program began immediately. She moved into the Crossroads Recovery Center, a supervised living facility for individuals recovering from addiction and criminal behavior. Her days were structured around work therapy and restitution activities. Madison's 3 jobs included morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon work at a package delivery service, and weekend shifts at a grocery store. Every penny she earned beyond basic living expenses went directly into a restitution fund managed by the court system. Dr. Patricia Williams conducted weekly individual therapy sessions with Madison and monthly family sessions with our parents and me. The initial sessions were painful, but necessary for understanding the psychological roots of Madison's behavior. Madison has spent years believing she was entitled to compensation for emotional sacrifices she made for the family. Dr. Williams explained during one of our joint sessions, she genuinely convinced herself that taking your father's car and stealing from your parents was justified by her perceived role as the daughter who stayed home to provide emotional support. Madison's first genuine breakthrough came after 3 months of intensive therapy when she finally acknowledged the calculated nature of her crimes. I didn't steal from families because I was desperate. she admitted during a family session. I stole from them because I enjoyed the challenge of creating elaborate stories and seeing if I could convince good people to sacrifice for someone they believed deserved help. It made me feel powerful and intelligent. This admission was devastating but crucial. Madison needed to confront the predatory aspects of her behavior before she could develop genuine empathy for her victims. The community service component of her program proved equally transformative. Madison was required to speak at family workshops about manipulation tactics, helping parents and young adults recognize warning signs of emotional exploitation. During her first presentation at a community center in Denver, Madison broke down while describing how she had exploited the Chen family's love for their daughter's educational dreams. I studied their social media for months, learning about their values, their fears, their hopes for Lisa's future. Madison explained to an audience of concerned parents. I created a false friendship with Lisa, gaining her trust, so I could eventually manipulate her parents into sacrificing their precious family heirlooms. I knew exactly which emotional buttons to push because I had invested time in understanding what mattered most to them. The audience was silent as Madison continued. The cruelest part was that I genuinely enjoyed the relationships I built with these families. I liked being trusted and valued by them, but I was willing to destroy that trust the moment it became profitable for me. Meanwhile, I had tracked down and purchased back Dad's Mustang from the collector who had bought it from Madison. The restoration process became a family healing ritual, with Mom, Frank, and I working together to return the car to its original condition. 8 months into Madison's program, she had saved enough money to begin making restitution payments to her victims. The first check went to the Thompson family in Phoenix, accompanied by a handwritten letter acknowledging the full scope of her betrayal and the genuine emotional trauma she had caused. Janet Thompson called me after receiving Madison's payment and letter. Estelle, your sister's apology seemed genuine, but more importantly, the fact that she's working 3 jobs to earn restitution money shows she's finally taking real responsibility for her actions. Madison's transformation wasn't immediate or perfect, but it was measurable and sustained. Her gambling addiction counselor reported consistent progress. Her work supervisors praised her reliability and effort, and her victim advocacy presentations became increasingly powerful as she developed genuine empathy for the families she had betrayed. During one of our final family therapy sessions, Dr. Williams asked Madison to reflect on what she had learned through the accountability process. I learned that real love requires honesty, even when honesty is difficult and uncomfortable, Madison replied. I spent years telling myself that I was protecting my family by managing their perceptions of me, but I was actually destroying the relationships I claimed to value. Trust isn't something you can manipulate. It's something you earn through consistent behavior over time. The most powerful moment came when Madison finally understood the true significance of Dad's Mustang in my life. Estelle, I'm not asking for forgiveness because I know that has to be earned over time, but I want you to know that I understand now why Dad left you the car. It wasn't about favoritism, it was about recognizing your character and knowing you would honor the responsibility that comes with keeping family memories alive. 15 months after her sentencing, Madison had paid full restitution to all victims, completed her addiction treatment program, and successfully transitioned to independent living while maintaining steady employment. Judge Lawson formally concluded her supervised release program, noting that Madison had exceeded all requirements and demonstrated sustained behavioral changes. The restored Mustang sat in our parents' garage, gleaming in pristine condition and representing not just Dad's memory, but our family's capacity for healing through accountability and genuine transformation. Madison had learned that justice isn't about punishment. It's about taking responsibility for your actions and working consistently to repair the damage you've caused. And our family had learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting betrayals. It's about rebuilding trust through honest communication and sustained effort. 2 years after Madison's sentencing, I stood in the driveway of our family home, watching her carefully reverse Dad's restored Mustang out of the garage for our annual Father's Day memorial drive. The sight of my sister handling the car with reverence and responsibility would have been unimaginable during the darkest days of her criminal behavior, but transformation through accountability had made the impossible real. Madison had not only completed her court-mandated programs, but had exceeded every expectation. She now managed the Northeast Denver location of a legitimate bakery chain, having worked her way up from entry-level positions through demonstrated reliability and genuine business acumen. Her 3 years of mandatory employment had taught her the value of honest work and the satisfaction of earning success through merit rather than manipulation. Estelle, I checked the oil pressure and tire rotation schedule, Madison called out as she adjusted the driver's seat. Everything's perfect for our drive to Lookout Mountain. The Sunday drives to Dad's favorite scenic overlook had become our new family tradition, replacing the weekly dinners that had been poisoned by Madison's lies and manipulations. These drives allowed for honest conversation without the formal structure of therapy sessions or court appearances. Mom settled into the passenger seat, wearing Dad's old Denver Broncos cap, while Frank and I climbed into the back. The burgundy leather interior still smelled faintly of Dad's cologne, a comforting reminder of the man who had valued integrity above all other virtues. As Madison navigated through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, she shared updates about her latest project, a financial literacy workshop she was developing for families affected by gambling addiction. Dr. Williams connected me with the Colorado Council on Problem Gambling, Madison explained. They want me to help develop educational materials that teach families how to recognize manipulation tactics and protect themselves from financial exploitation. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Madison was now using her expertise in manipulation to help prevent others from becoming victims of similar schemes. Her understanding of predatory psychology, gained through years of practicing it, had become a valuable tool for protecting vulnerable families. The workshop covers everything from social media safety to recognizing emotional manipulation in personal relationships. Madison continued, last month I helped a family in Aurora identify warning signs that their daughter's new boyfriend was actually trying to exploit their savings for drug money. Frank nodded approvingly. Madison, your ability to spot these tactics because you use them yourself makes you uniquely qualified to help other families avoid what we went through. As we drove through Golden toward the mountain highway, Mom turned around to face me. Estelle, I owe you an apology that I've been struggling to find words for. Mom, you don't need to... Yes, I do. Her voice was firm but gentle. I failed to protect you from Madison's manipulation, and worse, I participated in betraying your trust by selling your father's car without understanding the full situation. I prioritized keeping peace over seeking truth, and that was wrong. The conversation that followed was one of the most honest our family had ever shared. Mom and Frank acknowledged how Madison's psychological manipulation had exploited their desire to avoid conflict and their guilt about my demanding career schedule. They had wanted to believe Madison's version of events because it was easier than confronting the possibility that their daughter was lying to them. Madison was so skilled at making her problems feel urgent while making your success feel selfish, Frank admitted. She knew exactly how to trigger our concerns about family unity and our fears about losing touch with you. Madison pulled into the Lookout Mountain parking area and turned off the engine. The Denver skyline spread out below us, glittering in the afternoon sunshine like a promise of possibilities. I want to say something to all of you. Madison began, her voice steady but emotional. The past 3 years of accountability and therapy taught me that real family bonds aren't built on protecting each other from difficult truths. They're built on supporting each other through honest challenges. She turned to face me directly. Estelle, I spent years resenting your success, because I thought it diminished my value to the family. I convinced myself that you had abandoned us when you built your career, but the truth was that I was jealous of your achievements and afraid that I could never measure up to your accomplishments. The admission hung in the mountain air, painful but necessary. I used Dad's death and Mom's grief as weapons to manipulate everyone's emotions. I positioned myself as the sacrificial daughter who stayed home to care for the family while you pursued selfish ambitions. But that was completely false. You called every week, visited every month, sent flowers and gifts for every occasion, and included all of us in your success whenever possible. Mom reached back to squeeze my hand. Madison's right. We let her convince us to see your career success as abandonment instead of recognizing it as an achievement that honored your father's encouragement to pursue your dreams. The healing in that moment was tangible. 3 years of therapy, accountability programs, and sustained honest effort had transformed our family's understanding of love, success, and mutual support. Madison had completed her restitution payments 6 months ahead of schedule, earning recognition from Judge Lawson for exceptional commitment to making amends. Every family she had victimized received full financial compensation, plus interest, and many had become advocates for her rehabilitation program. Janet Thompson from Phoenix had even written a letter to the court describing how Madison's transformation had inspired their own family to become involved in victim advocacy work. Madison's genuine remorse and sustained effort to make amends showed us that people can change when they're held accountable and given opportunities to rebuild their lives based on honesty. Janet had written, her weekly check-in calls during the restitution period helped our daughter Emma learn to trust again after being betrayed by someone she considered a friend. The community service presentations had evolved into a consulting business where Madison helped law enforcement agencies and family service organizations understand sophisticated manipulation tactics used by financial predators. Her expertise was now serving justice rather than subverting it. As we sat on the mountain overlooking the city where we had all grown up, Frank pulled out his phone to show us photos from Madison's recent promotion ceremony at the bakery. Madison earned this advancement through 18 months of exceptional performance, he said proudly. Her district manager told me that she's being considered for regional training responsibilities because of her leadership skills and understanding of business operations. The success felt earned rather than given, built on genuine competence rather than manipulation or family connections. Madison had learned to value achievements that could be maintained through honest effort. There's something else I want to share, Madison said, reaching into her purse. I've been saving money for a special project. She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a beautifully crafted keychain made from original metal components of Dad's Mustang pieces that had been replaced during the restoration process. I had this made by a metal worker in downtown Denver, Madison explained. It contains actual parts from Dad's car, so you'll always carry a piece of his memory with you, even when you're traveling for work. The gesture was thoughtful and meaningful, without being expensive or elaborate. Madison had learned to express love through consideration rather than grand displays designed to manipulate emotions. As we prepared to head back down the mountain, I realized that our family had achieved something remarkable. We had rebuilt trust without forgetting the lessons learned from betrayal. Madison's accountability process had taught all of us the difference between enabling destructive behavior and supporting genuine growth. I have one more thing to share, I announced as Madison started the car. My company is expanding operations to Denver, and I've accepted a position that will allow me to work from Colorado while maintaining my international responsibilities. The excitement in the car was immediate and genuine. After years of building my career across different continents, I was finally ready to balance professional success with family proximity. This means regular Sunday drives, holiday dinners, where everyone actually shows up, and Madison's future children getting to know their Aunt Estelle as more than just a voice on weekly phone calls. I continued. Madison began crying as she carefully navigated the mountain road back toward Denver. Estelle, having you nearby while I continue rebuilding my life means everything to me. I know I have years of continued growth ahead, but knowing you'll be here to support that process makes me feel like our family really can heal completely. As we drove through the golden afternoon light, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. Madison's betrayal had nearly destroyed our family, but her commitment to accountability and genuine transformation had ultimately made us stronger than we had ever been before. The restored Mustang hummed smoothly on the familiar roads, carrying 4 people who had learned that real love requires honesty, accountability, and the courage to demand better from ourselves and each other. Dad's memory lived not just in the car he had left me, but in the values he had instilled about integrity, hard work, and the importance of family bonds built on truth rather than convenient illusions. 6 months later, Madison and I stood together in the garage working on the Mustang's routine maintenance, our conversation flowing naturally between carburetor adjustments and updates about our respective careers. She was managing her own bakery location with plans to eventually open a franchise focused on hiring people in recovery programs. I was building the Denver office of my consulting firm while maintaining the international relationships that had made my career successful. Estelle, do you think Dad would be proud of how we turned this situation around? Madison asked as she checked the brake fluid levels. I looked at my sister, genuinely reformed, consistently, honest, successfully independent, and committed to using her experiences to help others, and knew exactly how Dad would have answered that question. Madison, I think Dad would say that facing our mistakes honestly and working consistently to repair the damage we've caused is exactly what family means. He'd be proud of both of us. As the sun set through the garage windows, casting long shadows across the gleaming Mustang, I understood that some gifts become more valuable after they've been temporarily lost. Dad's car had been returned to me, but more importantly, my relationship with Madison had been rebuilt on a foundation of truth, accountability, and mutual respect that would endure long after the vintage engine finally stopped running. The greatest lesson wasn't about forgiveness or second chances, it was about the difference between loving someone and enabling their destructive behavior. Real love sometimes requires allowing people to face the consequences of their choices so they can learn to make better decisions. Madison's transformation had been possible not because we excused her crimes, but because we demanded that she take full responsibility for them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is refuse to protect them from the consequences of their actions. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do is help them find their way back to the values that make relationships worth rebuilding. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between protecting a family member from consequences and helping them learn from their mistakes? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about family challenges and personal growth. Share this with anyone who might be dealing with similar trust issues in their own family relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember, the strongest families aren't the ones that avoid difficult conversations, but the ones that work through them together with honesty and love.